So I ordered another Terracotta pot measured irrigation valve, and when it came in the mail from Australia, it was shattered. That sucks, but it's an opportunity to take it apart and understand how it works. So I'm just going to show it to you. So we have a few pieces here. Here, the valve itself. This is the float. This is the old Terracotta pot. That's a grommet or gasket. It's glued in there. This is just a plastic tube, kind of like a dowel rod. Inside, you can see that it's got a stopper in there. So there's a little piece of plastic in there that serves as a stopper. Okay, and then it's just, remember the gasket. So this little pin, it's a metal pin on a spring. Just like that. That goes up into the dowel. And you can see the spring is hitting the stopper. So it's got spring action. All right. Then on the other side of the Terracotta pot is the float. And at the bottom of the float here is a magnet. So this float floats up and down on the dowel rod. When there's water in the pot, this float is just floating. And as it evaporates, it goes lower, 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 lower. Eventually, that magnet is gonna grab that metal pin and suck it up. Watch, it's gonna suck it. And then push it back out if it detaches. So I'm going to lower my camera a little because it's not focusing. So if I pull the magnet away, I'm going to pull the magnet so it pushes out because there's that spring action. But if I push the magnet forward, it sucks it up. Okay. So this sits on top of the valve. And you can see there's a little hole. And then it came with this little cap on top that gets screwed down with these little screws. So this pot sits on top of here. And what it's going to do is if I detach the magnet, it's going to shoot the pin out. The pin goes into here, and then it's going to press. It's going to put pressure on inside that hole. Okay? So it's going to come in and it's going to put pressure. It's going to shoot down and put pressure on this hole. If you take this off, this is like a gasket cap. Then there's inside of the valve. So when you push this gasket, this pin is going to push this gasket down, this cap like that, when the magnet isn't detached, or when the magnet is detached. When the magnet attaches, it sucks back up. But when it detaches, it pushes it back down. Well, what happens when it pushes it back down? Let's take off this gasket cap. We can see inside of the valve. So this is the water input. Water's shooting in there. There's a little screen to get out stuff. And then you can see the hole inside of there. There's a hole. So the water's coming into this ring donut. And then the water is going to go out this side. This goes out to the plants. But to get here, it's got to come up over this little inner donut hole wall, and it goes down there and shoots out. So that's how this works. So when this gasket is being pressed down, the water, there's pressure coming in, but this pin is holding it down. But when there is no pin holding it down, the gasket comes up just enough so water can go down that hole and out the output. So if we connect it all together, let's just use one of these screws. Magnet goes on the dowel rod. Spring goes inside the other side of the dowel rod. And then we got spring action there. All right, so as long as this magnet is touching, it's sucking that little pin. But as soon as the magnet detaches, boom. All right, so it's attached. We're going to hook it up like that. So this is how it lives. Okay, so now we have a pot with water in it. It's like this is the output. So we put that here. I have to redo it. So this is just a piece of poly pipe that you could do a connector up to your drip beds. This is the control dripper. It's gonna go right in your output poly pipe. You just stick it in like that. This, when the valve is open, is gonna slowly drip back into your pot. Okay, so if this pot had water, it's floating, but let's say the sun comes out, it's gonna start heating up. Your garden beds are heating up. The terracotta pot is in the same area as the garden, so it's heating up. It's slowly evaporating the water. The water's getting sucked out of the terracotta pot, porous walls, and eventually the magnet clicks. Okay, it didn't click, but eventually it clicks. Now the floodgate is open. The valve just opened up, and this dripper will be the first thing to start dripping water back into the pot. So eventually, this pot is going to fill back up with water, and there will be enough buoyancy to detach the magnet, and now it's floating again. And it's a perpetual cycle. If it rains, the pot fills up, because it has a top with holes in it. It's going to fill up, and then there will be enough water in there to be floating again. Let's say the sun comes out and you have a really hot, dry spell. This thing is going to just constantly be evaporating, dripping back into the pot, evaporating, dripping back into the pot, and it's a perpetual cycle. So the terracotta pot valve responds to the prevailing weather, including rain. If it's really hot, we're going to get more evaporation. If it's not that hot and it's rainy, we're going to have more rainwater filling up the valve. So it responds to the weather and not a timer. If you put a timer, the water event happens when you timed it to, when you set it. Whether it's raining or hot, it's on a timer. This is unpowered, responds to the prevailing weather. Hope that makes sense. Thanks.